There is a precise moment when the life you've known fractures. It's not always a slow crack. Sometimes it's a single, seismic event that splits the world into a before and an after. For me, it happened on a humid Saturday evening, surrounded by the clinking of champagne flutes and the low hum of polite conversation, under the twinkling fairy lights of my parents' garden. It was my sister's engagement party. Ava, resplendent in a silk champagne-colored dress that cost more than my monthly rent, was holding court. She glowed, a vision of perfect happiness, her left hand fluttering constantly to show off the colossal diamond solitaire on her finger. The ring belonged to Liam, the man standing dutifully by her side, his arm around her waist, his smile practiced. I was where I always was, on the periphery. The older sister, the reliable one, the shadow to Ava's brilliant sun. I clutched a glass of wine I wasn't drinking, my own smile feeling like a cracked mask. Every congratulatory toast to the perfect couple was a fresh needle prick to my heart. Because I knew a secret that was eating me alive. The secret was Liam. And me. It had started innocently enough. 6 months ago, Ava had begged me to have lunch with Liam, an architect new to the city, to give him some local tips since she was too busy with her high-powered job. Just make him feel welcome, Alara. You're good at that, she'd said, her tone vaguely patronizing.
So I did.
I met Liam at a quiet bookstore cafe. He was tall, with kind eyes that held a hint of shyness, and a quiet intelligence that immediately put me at ease. We talked for 3 hours. Not about Ava. About books, about our favorite travel destinations, about the absurdity of modern art. It was the easiest, most natural conversation of my life. We met again, always under the guise of me helping Ava's busy boyfriend settle in.
A trip to the museum.
A walk through the botanical gardens. Each time, the pretense grew thinner, the connection between us grew thicker. We were two quiet souls who had found each other in the noisy orbit of my sister's world. And then, one rainy evening, standing under the awning of a coffee shop, he looked at me and said, "This is wrong, isn't it?" My heart had stopped. What is? This. He gestured between us. Pretending that these aren't the best hours of my week. Pretending I don't think about you constantly. Alara, I've tried to feel this way with your sister. I've tried so hard. But it's a performance. With you, it's just real. He'd kissed me then. And the world, for the first time, made perfect sense. We were cowards. We knew we had to tell Ava. But every time we resolved to do it, she would announce some grand plan, a couple's vacation, a meeting with a wedding planner, and we'd freeze, trapped by our own guilt and the terrifying force of her personality. Liam was going to end it. He promised. After her big promotion. After the holidays. And then he proposed. He came to my apartment afterward, the ring box in his hand feeling like a lead weight. His face was ashen. She was so happy, he'd whispered, his voice broken. She was at this incredible restaurant. All her friends were watching the pressure. I panicked, Alara. I'm so sorry. I'll fix it. I'll tell her tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. Ava's happiness was a fortress, and Liam couldn't find the strength to besiege it. And I, the ever-loyal sister, couldn't be the one to destroy her. So here we were, at the engagement party. Me, silently dying inside. Him, a prisoner in a gilded cage. And Ava, blissfully unaware, the star of her own show. It was during the speeches that it happened. My father was droning on about destiny and perfect matches. Ava was beaming, clinging to Liam's arm. My eyes met Liam's across the crowd. It was just a glance, a fleeting moment of shared, exquisite agony. But it was enough. Ava saw it. I saw the moment her perception shifted. The glow on her face didn't fade. It hardened into something cold and sharp. Her brilliant smile remained, but it no longer reached her eyes. She looked from Liam's tormented expression to my guilty one, and the truth, the awful, humiliating truth, clicked into place. The speech ended. Applause rippled through the crowd. Ava slowly, deliberately, detached herself from Liam. She walked toward me, her steps measured on the manicured grass. The crowd parted for her, sensing a new drama unfolding. She stopped in front of me. The music seemed to fade away. "Is there something you'd like to tell me, Alara?" she asked, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. It was loud enough for the guests nearest to us to hear. A hush began to fall. My mouth went dry. "Ava, please. Not here." "Why not here?" Her voice rose, losing its sweetness, gaining a razor's edge. "I think here is perfect. I think everyone should see what you've done." Tears welled in her eyes, masterful on cue tears. "All my life," she cried out, her voice trembling with a practiced anguish that turned every head. "All my life, you've been in the shadows, watching me, jealous of everything I have. But this? My fiancé." "Ava, stop," I pleaded, my own tears starting to fall, tears of shame and panic. "You took him from me," she screamed, the sound raw and piercing, finally silencing the last of the whispers. Her hands trembled as she pointed an accusatory finger at me. "You saw how much I loved him, and you couldn't stand it. You couldn't stand my happiness. You had to sink your claws into him. You had to poison him against me." The crowd was a wall of stunned, judgmental faces. I saw my mother's hand fly to her mouth. My father's confused frown. I was exposed, naked under the fairy lights, the villain in my sister's tragedy. I stood there, breathless, my heart racing, my world collapsing. I had no defense. Everything she said was technically true, even if her interpretation was wrong. I was a thief. I had stolen her fiancé's heart. I looked at Liam, my eyes begging him, pleading with him to say something, to do something. And that's when he moved. Time seemed to warp, slowing to a thick, syrupy crawl. Every detail was hyper-focused. The desperate catch of my mother's breath, the way a moth beat itself against a lantern, the single tear tracing a path through my sister's perfect makeup. Liam walked toward us. He didn't run. He didn't shout. His movement was calm, deliberate, a ship cutting through a stormy sea. The eyes of 200 guests tracked him, a collective audience holding its breath for the next act. Ava saw him coming, and a triumphant, tearful smile broke through her performance. She thought he was coming to her, to defend her, to condemn me. She reached for him, her trembling hand extending, expecting him to take it and stand united against the common enemy, me. He walked right past her. He didn't even look at her. He stopped in front of me. His face, which had been a mask of strained politeness all evening, was now etched with a raw, pained honesty. In his eyes, I didn't see apology or fear. I saw resolve. And then, in front of everyone, my family, our friends, my shattered sister, he reached for my hand. His fingers laced through mine, his grip firm, warm, real. A silent declaration that echoed louder than any scream. The gasp that rippled through the crowd was a physical thing. Ava's outstretched hand hung in the air, suspended in grotesque emptiness. Her triumphant smile melted into a mask of utter, incomprehensible shock. "Liam," she whispered, the sound small and broken. He finally turned to look at her, but he didn't let go of my hand. His hold tightened, anchoring me to him, to this moment, to the truth. "I'm sorry, Ava," he said, his voice clear and steady, carrying in the profound silence. "I am so truly sorry for the pain I've caused. This is my fault. All of it. But Alara didn't take me from you." He paused, letting the words land. "You never had me." Ava recoiled as if she'd been slapped. "What are you talking about? We're engaged. You love me. You told me you loved me." "I tried," he said, his voice thick with regret. "God, I tried. You are brilliant and beautiful and magnetic. Everyone loves you. I wanted to be the man who deserved you. But love isn't something you earn, Ava. It's something that happens. And it never happened for me. Not with you." "But the ring," she stammered, looking down at the diamond sparkling on her finger, now looking like a shackle. "A mistake," he said softly. "A cowardly, terrible mistake made by a man who is too afraid to hurt you and too confused by his own feelings to do the right thing." I should have ended it months ago. I should never have let it get this far. The crowd was utterly mesmerized. This was no longer a simple story of sisterly betrayal. It was a complex, brutal unraveling of a perfect facade. My feelings for Alara, Liam continued, his gaze returning to me, full of a warmth that made my knees weak. They weren't planned. They weren't malicious. They grew because when I'm with her, I don't have to perform. I don't have to be the perfect accessory to a perfect life. I can just be. And that is worth more to me than anything. He looked back at Ava, his expression firm. She didn't poison me.
She saved me.
So, if you want to be angry at me. Direct all your hatred at me. But leave your sister out of it. The only thing she is guilty of is being the woman I fell in love with. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a petal drop from a rose. Ava stood frozen. The tears were real now, no longer for show. They were tears of utter humiliation and world-shattering shock. Her perfect narrative had been hijacked, rewritten live in front of everyone she knew. She wasn't the victim of a jealous sister. She was the woman whose fiancé had never loved her. It was a far more devastating truth. She looked at our joined hands, a symbol of her complete and total defeat. The anger drained from her face, replaced by a hollow, empty look. Without another word, she turned and fled, pushing through the stunned crowd, her silk dress flowing behind her like a ghost. The spell was broken. The crowd erupted into a frenzy of whispers. My mother burst into tears. My father looked lost, his face pale. Liam turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "I'm so sorry I didn't do that sooner," he murmured, his thumb stroking my hand. I was a coward. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, tears streaming down my face. They weren't tears of sadness or shame anymore. They were tears of relief, of validation, of a love that had finally, terrifyingly, stepped out of the shadows. We didn't stay. There was nothing left to say. Holding my hand tightly, Liam led me through the parting crowd. We didn't look back. We walked away from the fairy lights, the champagne, the ruins of the engagement party, and out into the quiet, dark street. The cool night air hit my face, and I took my first deep, shuddering breath in what felt like hours. We stopped under a street lamp, its light a soft yellow pool in the darkness. "Well," Liam said, a faint, weary smile touching his lips. "That was a disaster." A hysterical laugh bubbled out of me, mixed with a sob. "That was the most terrifying and incredible thing I've ever witnessed." "I meant what I said, Alara," he said, his expression turning serious. "Every word. I love you, and I'm done hiding." He leaned down and kissed me, there on the quiet street. It was a kiss of defiance, of freedom, of a future that was finally ours, no matter how messy its beginning. But as we broke apart, the reality of the aftermath began to settle in. We had walked away, but the explosion had already happened. The fallout was just beginning. We had our truth, but we had also unleashed a hurricane named Ava. And I knew my sister. She wouldn't accept this. She wouldn't just let us be. Her humiliation wouldn't end with her running away. It would transform. It would fester. And it would come for us. The first 48 hours were a strange, suspended silence. Liam and I hid away in my apartment, the outside world shut out. We didn't answer calls. We barely looked at our phones, which buzzed incessantly with texts, voicemails, and social media notifications, a digital angry mob gathering at our door. We were living in a bubble, a cocoon of us against the world. It was equal parts terrifying and euphoric. We had each other, and that felt like enough. But the real world has a way of breaking down the door. It started with my parents. They arrived on my doorstep on Monday morning, their faces grim. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed. My father's posture was stiff with disappointment. They didn't yell. The silence was worse. "How could you, Alara?" my mother asked, her voice thin and reedy. "Your own sister's engagement party? The humiliation." I tried to explain. I told them about the lunches, the connection, the unbearable pressure. Liam's attempts to break it off. I told them it was real love, not a spiteful act. My father listened, his arms crossed. Real love doesn't skulk around in the shadows, Alara, he said finally, his voice cold. It doesn't betray family. You should have come to us. You should have told Ava the moment you had feelings. Instead, you let it fester. You let him propose. You are just as complicit in this humiliation as he is. Their loyalty, as I had always known it would be, was with Ava. Her pain was immediate, visible, dramatic. My happiness was quiet, complicated, and therefore suspect. Then came the social media storm. Ava, of course, was a master of the medium. She didn't post a rant. She posted a single, perfectly filtered photo of herself, looking wistfully out a window, the engagement ring conspicuously absent from her finger. The caption was a masterpiece of victimhood. When you think you know someone's heart, but it was never yours to hold. Thank you for all the love and support. Taking some time to heal. Broken heart. The comment section was a bloodbath. Her friends, our extended family, even vague acquaintances piled on with messages of support for her and thinly veiled condemnations of the monstrous sister and the spineless ex-fiancé. I was tagged in so many hateful comments that I had to delete my accounts. My character was assassinated in a public forum I couldn't defend myself in. Liam faced a different kind of fallout. His professional reputation took a hit. Ava had strategically warned some of his most important clients, painting him as unstable and duplicitous. He lost 2 major contracts. The whispers followed him to the office. We were pariahs. The happy couple who had chosen love were now isolated, bearing the weight of everyone's judgment. The hardest part was the doubt. In the quiet moments, my father's words echoed in my head. You should have told her. Was he right? Had my passivity, my fear of confrontation, made me just as guilty as Liam's cowardice? Had we truly been noble victims of circumstance, or were we just 2 people who made a series of selfish, terrible choices? Liam saw me struggling. One evening, as I stared blankly at a wall, he knelt in front of me and took my hands. Look at me, he said. We messed up. We made a huge, complicated, messy mistake. We hurt someone deeply. We have to carry that. But Alara, we cannot let their narrative become our truth. Our love is not a mistake. It is the one right thing in the middle of all this wrong. We have to believe that, or this will destroy us. He was right. We couldn't change the past. We could only choose our future. We started to fight back, not with anger, but with quiet integrity. Liam responded to his clients with professionalism and grace, acknowledging the personal difficulties, but assuring them of his unwavering professional commitment. He didn't badmouth Ava. He simply stated that the relationship had ended due to irreconcilable differences and asked for respect for their privacy. I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I wrote my sister a letter. I didn't defend myself. I didn't mention Liam. I simply apologized for the pain she was in. I apologized for my part in the secrecy, for not having the courage to be honest with her, for the public humiliation she endured. I told her I loved her and that I always would, and that I hoped one day we could find a way back to each other. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't get one. Weeks turned into months. The storm slowly began to subside. The world moved on to new scandals. My parents, while still cool, began to speak to me again. The loss of the contracts forced Liam to branch out on his own, and his new independent firm started to gain traction, built on his talent and his new, hard-won reputation for honesty. One afternoon, I was in a coffee shop when I ran into an old family friend who had been at the party. She looked uncomfortable at first, then sighed. I have to be honest, Alara, she said. What happened was awful. But the way he looked at you when he took your hand. She shook her head, a faint smile on her lips. I've been married 40 years. I know what that look means. Ava's performance was spectacular, but that was real. It was the first flicker of external validation we'd received. It felt like a lifeline. The final confrontation with Ava happened almost a year later, at Christmas. Liam and I had been invited, tentatively by my mother. We arrived, hand in hand, bracing for impact. Ava was there. She was colder, harder. The perfect, sunny facade was gone, replaced by a polished marble exterior. We avoided each other all evening until we found ourselves alone in the kitchen. The air was thick with unsaid words. She looked at me, her eyes devoid of the drama from the garden. They were just empty. "You got your happy ending," she stated flatly. "It's not an ending, Ava," I said softly. "And it wasn't about beating you. It was never a competition." "It was always a competition," she snapped, the marble cracking for a second. "Everything was. You were just better at hiding it. You played the long game. The quiet, dependable one. And you won the prize." I realized then that we would never see it the same way. In her world, love was a prize to be won, a trophy to be displayed. In mine, it was a partnership to be built. We were speaking different languages. "I'm sorry you see it that way," I said. "I miss my sister." She turned away, looking out the window at the falling snow. "I miss her too," she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. And that was it. There was no reconciliation.
No te felimbrás.
But there was a quiet acknowledgement of a loss that went deeper than a fiancé. We had both lost a sister that day in the garden. As we drove home that night, Liam asked me if I was okay. I looked at him, at the man who had chosen me in front of everyone, who had stood by me through the fallout, who had built a new life with me from the wreckage of the old one. I said, and I meant it. It was still messy. It was still complicated. There was sadness for what was broken.
But there was also peace.
He chose me, not out of spite, not to win a competition, but for the simple, profound reason that our souls recognized each other. And in the end, after all the screaming and the tears and the silence, that had to be enough. It was, and it always would be, everything.